the mini microphone's back, so this is going to be a sit down chatty one. I just came back from Vipassana, which is a 10-day silent meditation retreat. It was one of the hardest but most rewarding things I have ever done. So the first half of this video is going to be going through the more logistical sides of things, how the daily course structure was set up, what the food, the accommodation was like, and then in the second half of the video I'll get more into my experiences and my takeaways. So during the course there were a couple of rules that we had to follow, and they were no talking to each other, no eye contact, no gesturing, no reading, no writing, no yoga. That was a big one for me. As the course progressed, I really saw the benefit in them. It took away so much external stimulation and really allowed me to go deep inside. Because I'm quite introverted, I really didn't mind the no talking thing. It was nice to not have that pressure of talking to other people and to really just be in your own space. I loved that. And if you accidentally made eye contact with someone or you accidentally gestured to someone, there's no one going around hitting you on the head or yelling at you for breaking a rule. So in terms of the schedule, it was pretty intense. The day started from 4 a.m. and went all the way up until about 9:30 a.m. So at 4 a.m. there's a bell that rings. They give you about half an hour to get ready, to wake up, to make the decision that you're gonna wake up, and then go into the hall at 4:30 to begin. Every morning I struggled so much to decide if I was going to wake up for the first session. I'd always keep snoozing my alarm until the very last minute, and for 3 of the days I didn't go to the meditation session. I just slept. There was a lot of shame and guilt that came up with that, which was really interesting to sit with later on in the day and be with that self-imposed shame, to allow it to move through me rather than beating myself up over it. After the first meditation session, there would be breakfast, which was from about 6:30 to 7:15, and then you had a bit of a break to then go and meditate again at 8 a.m. until 11 a.m. At 11 a.m. it was lunchtime, which lasted about 45 minutes, and then you'd get a bit of a break to go back into the next meditation session, which lasted from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. For these meditation sessions, there were 1-hour sessions, which from about day 4 or day 5, they asked you to sit still for and to not shuffle or move around. If you really couldn't stay still, then of course you have that full liberty to move, but just to keep the movement to a minimum. But the rest of the time you could walk in and out of the meditation hall, get some fresh air, take some breaks if you really needed it. This 4-hour meditation session was a killer for me. I'd always feel so exhausted at 5 p.m. and just ready to get out of there. There were so many times where I just questioned, am I able to do this? Am I able to finish this? And then at 5, if you were a new student, then you would have 2 pieces of fruit for dinner. If you were an old student who'd completed the course in the past, then you just get tea for dinner. As I'm recounting this out loud, the conditions sound torturous, but honestly they were not that bad. Like, once you're in it, you're just sitting down and meditating for a full day, so you don't really need that much energy. It might sound like I put myself into a prison for 10 days, but it really wasn't that bad, and I came out with so much more peace and joy. So I promise you, it's not a prison. The real prison is in here, baby. It's in here. After the fruit break, we'd get a bit of rest time until 6 p.m, which was when we went in for another meditation session until 7 p.m. From 7 to about 8 or 8:15, this was my favorite part of the day, which was when we got to watch the discourse videos. And these videos were recordings of the Vipassana teacher Goenka, who is honestly such a great teacher. He gives these lectures that explains the technique and goes into a lot of the theory behind it. So you learn about sankharas, which are the habitual reactions that you have. The whole technique of Vipassana is really about becoming aware of these habitual patterns and then undoing them, letting them free flow out. So I found these lectures really, really interesting. It got into the ancient workings of the mind and the different ways that the unconscious mind perceives the world, reacts to the world, and how we build up this sense of our I. And because I was so understimulated, it felt like movie time. My dopamine was just getting absolutely fired up for this, watching a man talk about a meditation technique. And then after the discourse video, there was another 45-minute session of meditation. After that, it was bedtime, where lights out were at 9:30, so you'd be nice and rested and get to repeat the whole cycle all over again. So all up, every day you're meditating for 10 hours and 45 minutes, which is absolutely crazy to think that I sat through a majority of that. And I'm very proud of myself for finishing. That is not easy to sit with yourself, especially with social media brain. It is not easy. Because I have an insane caffeine addiction, I did quit caffeine about 2 weeks before, just so that I wouldn't have to deal with the caffeine withdrawals as I was doing this really intense meditation course. So if caffeine is something that you're addicted to as well, and you're thinking about doing the course, I would really recommend just cutting back on the caffeine. You don't want to be going through all of those nasty caffeine withdrawal symptoms on top of your body getting used to the meditation schedule. If you're familiar with Sydney, then it's in the Blue Mountains, Blackheath region, and there's just so much nature around. I was just walking around looking at the birds, staring at the ants, because there really was nothing else to do. There was one day where I saw a kangaroo, and that was really cool. No one else was around, and we made eye contact, and then I just saw it hop off into the distance, and it was one of the most beautiful things I have seen in my entire life. It was a misty morning, and that was a very special moment between me and that kangaroo. I'm going to remember that kangaroo forever. I don't know if the kangaroo will remember me. I was lucky enough to get a room by myself just because I'm a really sensitive sleeper. The accommodation's nothing fancy. There's bathrooms, showers, bed. I don't really know what more you could need if you're just sitting there meditating for the entire day. In terms of payment, the course is actually free, but they do have an option for you to donate at the end of the course. And I absolutely love this entire model of how this course is run. It really put my faith back into humanity. So you only donate if you really got benefit from this course and want to pay that forward. This course has been going on for decades, which is amazing to know that it's just the good faith of people that have been keeping this going, and that lights something up in my heart. Like, wow, there is still good in this world, people. There is still good. I believe it. So that was on the more logistical side of the course. Let's go into my experience for the course. Boy, it was a big one. It was intense. Prior to this, I have a daily meditation practice for about 20 minutes a day, and so I wasn't unfamiliar with meditation. In saying that, this was still ridiculously hard and opened up a new realm of meditation that I've never experienced before. It took me to a new depth. It felt like I was going deep down into my subconscious, becoming aware of those habitual patterns, and then digging out those roots and letting them pass out of me, no longer clinging on to these habits and behaviors that constructed this idea of who I thought I was. So from about day 2, there was already so much coming up for me. One of the biggest things from this experience is realizing how much repressed anger I had within my body. And I didn't even know I was holding on to this much. If you're an Asian girly like me, you would know that physical abuse or getting hit by your parents was a very common thing, and I thought I had moved through that, but apparently there was still a little girl somewhere deep down inside that was angry, fearful, scared, and those memories were still being remembered and held in the very deepest cells of my body. And one of the things that you really practice during this course is this idea of equanimity. And I was always aware of the word equanimity, but I never really fully understood what it meant. Equanimity is pretty much staying balanced to all things, whether you are feeling angry or sad, you're not reacting to it. And that doesn't mean that you're not feeling them, it doesn't mean that you're numbing yourself out to them. It means those reactions, those sensations are there in your body. You're just not choosing to act out on them. So for example, with anger, if it's showing up in my body, I can feel myself getting angry. By practicing equanimity, I choose to not act upon it, and I choose to remember that this emotion is impermanent, that it will move, it will change, it will shift, and it's not forever. One of the teachings I loved is the only person that anger really hurts is yourself. Yes, if you're acting out on your anger, then you're hurting those around you. But even if you're hurting those around you, they may or may not be reacting to that. And really, you're the one that's holding on to that anger. You're the one that's going to be living with that. And that completely blew my mind. I was like, so true, so true. And feelings and emotions pass. So why hold on and allow it to make a home inside your body? It was really interesting to observe the way that my mind and my body interacted. So if there was a pain that showed up on my knee, the more that I would react to it and put my focus and my attention onto my knee, then the pain would get so much worse. But if I noticed it and I reminded myself, this pain is impermanent, this pain will change, and go back to scanning my body, the pain would either lessen or it might get worse, but each and every moment it was changing. And then over time, it would disappear. Like, there were moments I thought my knees would snap off because I was in so much pain. My mind and my brain were looping. And when my thoughts are looping, that is anxiety talking. So I asked myself, what's on the other side of this discomfort? If everything is changing, this won't be here forever. What do I have to learn by allowing this pain to be here and to not react to it? And I always found out that over time, the pain would shift. I also noticed that the pain would dissolve when I released a very deep held emotion. I remember sitting in the meditation hall and I would be getting so frustrated. I was getting so irritated. I was starting to feel so much heat in my body, just getting very, very angry and feeling this fire rise inside me. And the same time that I was feeling that heat of anger, I would notice that the pain in my knee would intensify. As it intensified, there were moments when really long forgotten memories would pop up. And after they came to surface and they were released, then I noticed that the pain in my knees would completely dissolve. And then over time, the pain might move to somewhere else. And the more that I learned to sit with that pain without reacting to it, with the sense of equanimity, I realized that everything changes. Every single part of my body at all moments of each and every moment is completely changing. Nothing is permanent. The law of nature is that all things change, and I myself am nature. So at all times, I am in flux, I am in flow. So what is there to cling on to? Why cling on to hatred? Why cling on to anger? Why cling on to fear when everything is so transient? What I loved about this course was the way it built up this deep knowing that everything that I need to know is within myself. And this I truly, truly believe. All of the wisdom will never come outside of myself. It is already deep encoded within my very being, within my cells, within my bones. What I mean by this, for example, is say the teaching of impermanence. This was something I knew, but I knew it because I was always looking outside of myself for evidence of it. For example, I would take a look at the trees changing or the leaves changing, or just how people change, people age, and things were always moving and in flux. But in a way, it felt like a very intellectual understanding of the teaching. But by going deeper into Vipassana, I went into my own being and noticed that at every moment, at every point in time, there are these sensations in my body. The presence of sensation means that there is movement in my body. There is some kind of biochemical reaction going on. There is some kind of pain coming up. There is some kind of pain dissolving, and everything changes at every moment. From this moment to this moment to this moment to this moment to this moment, everything changes. And this was an experiential knowing. It was no longer because I read it in a book and I was like, okay, yeah, I understand that. Such a wonderful thing to know that all of these answers are already within you, but we are so covered by the illusions of our mind that we completely forget. We're always looking outside of ourselves for answers. We're always looking to YouTube videos. We're always looking to books. We're always looking for something out there that will fill up what's in here, when really you have all of the answers inside of you. I have all of the answers inside of me. We're all expressions of spirit. We're all expressions of universe. And this course really teaches you that there's nothing you need to look for outside of yourself. There's no devotion to a guru. There's no devotion to a book. There's no dogmatic principle. It's a self-inquiry and allowing yourself to discover and feel those answers on your own. That is absolutely invaluable. Like, you are your own guru. And the other thing that I loved about this experience was it taught me a way to meditate that put me back into my body. The main way that you're meditating is by doing a body scan, and you're essentially just kind of scanning up and down your body without labeling anything. And normally when I tap into my body and I notice a sensation, I might label it as like tingling, as like heat. But with this one, you're completely getting out of your mind and you're just feeling into that sensation. So if you feel the tingling, don't label it as tingling, just feel into the tingling. As you practice, you're really just learning to be with whatever is there. For someone who has this habitual pattern of overthinking, it's amazing to have a technique to fall back on where I'm practicing really truly feeling and being in my body, not labeling, not being in the mind, but just being in this vessel. The other benefit that I got from this course is how less reactive I am. Already I've come into contact with situations that might have irritated me before, and I'm more aware of how I would have responded in the past and how I choose to respond now. And that doesn't mean that I'm completely going to stop reacting, but it does mean that I've shone the light of awareness onto it, and that changes everything. I have this pattern of really needing to control or know exactly how something is going to pan out, and if it doesn't pan out that way, then I feel irritated, I feel frustrated, there's a sense of dejection within me. Just with a really short first world example, I had plans to go to a coffee shop, and this was my favorite coffee shop, and in my head I had this whole romanticized version of I'm gonna go to my favorite coffee shop and I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna have a really nice coffee. But when I went and saw that coffee shop and it was closed, there would normally be this reaction of fire within me. But this time around, I noticed it coming up, but I just chose not to react to it. It's these little moments during the day that builds up to change on a larger scale, because you can't change unless you're starting from the smallest step. At the end of this 10-day course, it doesn't mean you become the Buddha, not at all. It just means that you've gained the practice of this meditation technique, and then it's up to you to decide if you want to continue practicing it or not. Personally, for me, I've already seen so much benefit in such a short amount of time. So I'm like, why not give this a go and actually put effort into practicing it and see how this affects my life, because it's already been so life-changing. If you're curious in Vipassana, I would really recommend just going and checking it out. It might not be for you, but at least you've given it a try and stayed open to it. I feel like a brand new person coming out of it. I've let go of so much, and I came out of the course feeling 10 tons lighter. I'm able to be in a newfound realm of presence and peace, and honestly, I see the world in a completely different way. So that's my spiel on Vipassana. I really would recommend it. This is not sponsored at all. If Vipassana could sponsor me, that would be really weird. If you're curious about Vipassana and you have any questions, things that I didn't answer, let me know. Put them down in the comments. I'll see you next time. Bye.